For more, let's go to our political panel from our Washington bureau. Steve Chaggaris is the CBS News senior political editor, and Molly Hooper is a Capitol Hill reporter for The Hill. Welcome to you both. Molly, let me begin with you. According to our timeline, the president knew Michael Flynn had misled Vice President Pence, but kept Pence in the dark for 2 weeks before Flynn's resignation. What have we learned about the power centers in Mr. Trump's White House?
Well, we learned that when you mislead Mike Pence, the vice president who is beloved by all the Republicans on Capitol Hill, it seems, and you lose his trust, you're out the door. And that's something that Republicans have told me today, especially on Capitol Hill, as all of these developments were unfolding. The one reason that Michael Flynn really, the driver behind it, was the fact that Mike Pence was misled and lost his trust. Mike Pence is known for his credibility, is known for being a guy who's a straight shooter, and he just wasn't going to put up with that. And it shows kind of how much power Mike Pence has in this administration. If you think about it, yes, it's the first 25 some odd days, but already somebody's out. The administration, President Trump, isn't going to put up with it, and neither is his vice president.
Steve, what do you think? What have we learned about these power centers?
Well, I think this is sort of emblematic of the major communication issues we're seeing in the White House and in the administration right now. And keep in mind, you have Pence in there, but you have Trump, who's never had any government experience. You have Steve Bannon, you have Reince Priebus, you have Kellyanne Conway, all these people who've never worked in the White House, really in a government setting, trying to run this administration from the get-go. And I think what we're seeing is these competing interests. We're seeing general disorganization. There are example after example of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. We've seen it in bungled rollouts. We've seeing it in messaging that is not really smooth. And so really overall is just really seems really disorganized right now. And it's going to be interesting to see over the next several weeks to several months how Trump and this administration rights this ship.
Well, Steve, let me ask you, House Speaker Paul Ryan said questions over Flynn could be folded into existing congressional investigations. Here's what Senator Rand Paul said.
I just don't think it's useful to be doing investigation after investigation, particularly of your own party. We'll never even get started with doing the things we need to do, like repealing Obamacare, if we're spending our whole time having Republicans investigate Republicans. I think it makes no sense.
So, Steve, that would seem to undercut Speaker Ryan's argument, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, there's going to be an investigation. There's no question about that. I think Republicans would like to keep this as efficient as possible and not blow this up into a situation that turns into a political nightmare for Republicans. But there's no question the investigation is going on. In fact, there are some Republicans that are trying to get to the bottom of this Russian meddling in the election. Now, with this Flynn development, they want to find out what did Flynn know, when did he know it, and why this all happened. What this is really running the risk of for Republicans, and I think this is what Rand Paul is sort of suggesting, is that this gives the Democrats really something to hang their hats on. It's not good for Republicans to be focusing on this. Democrats are in the minority in both the Senate and the House, and they don't have the White House, and this gives them something to sort of hammer Trump and Republicans with as Republicans have the opportunity to push forth policy in Congress this year. So it can be a distraction for them if this becomes a major focus.
Yeah, Molly, what about that? What do you think? I mean, is this just handing Democrats political ammunition then?
Well, it could be, but I think that there's also another issue that Chairman Nunes, who's the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, hammered home today, and President Trump sent out a tweet to this effect. What's really, also troubling is the fact that all these leaks are happening of, conversations with the president and world leaders, conversations of administration officials with the Russians. It's why is an American being, why is an American, having his phone line tapped? Even though, obviously, if you're talking to a Russian ambassador, you gotta think that he's probably being tapped. However, that said, how is this information being leaked out? And that's what Chairman Nunes wants to get to the bottom of. In terms of the broader investigation to the Russian ties, it is going on with the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee, and really behind the scenes, or actually actually in front of the scenes, even though we're not seeing as much of it. There's a lot of work going on in Congress on Obamacare, on repealing or deregulating some of these policies that then President Obama put in place. And so there is a lot of work actually going on. It's just the media is really focusing on these more sensational sort of palace intrigue stories.
Yeah, okay. Speaking of palace intrigue, Steve, because I have to ask about this. Chris Christie was at the White House Tuesday, and Major Garrett reports that he could have a role in the Trump White House. What could he bring to the table, given some of the organizational issues that have been widely reported in the White House?
So if you read between the lines about what's been said, I think maybe what this role might be, maybe less of a coming in and shaking things up at the White House and more specific. Sean Spicer, the White House spokesman, said that the meeting was to discuss combating drug use. Now, Kellyanne Conway has said publicly, Kellyanne Conway, by the way, who's a New Jersey native, one of the issues she's dealing with is the opioid epidemic. So maybe this is a situation where they're talking to Christie about coming in and putting together a commission to deal with the opioid epidemic or drug use. It's something that Christie's talked a lot about as governor. He said that's going to be something he's going to focus on in his final year as governor. So that could be something. Now, if there is something bigger at play, as I mentioned earlier, there is very few people at the top at the White House who have experience running an executive branch. Chris Christie does have that experience, having been governor 2 terms of New Jersey. So perhaps if there is a larger role for him at the White House, coming in and helping reorganize what has turned out to be a really disorganized first few weeks of the administration, perhaps there's something there. But I think it might have to do something with this curtailing drug use situation.
Okay, let's talk about the Democrats. Molly, the Washington Post reports on Hill Democrats who've faced protests for not doing enough to block President Trump's nominees. And some are asking Bernie Sanders to help stave off town hall protests from members of their own party and redirect their anger at Republicans. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that, you could see from the day after the inauguration with the hundreds and thousands of people who were out marching, for the Women's March, which actually kind of turned into a lot of people marching for their own issues. We had the environment, women's issues, equal rights. It'll be interesting because there's a lot of angry people out there, a lot of people who are not happy with the election results, who just want to be heard. And, there have been comparisons, of course, to the Tea Party, the summer of 2009, when the Tea Party really started to take off, and the fiery town halls that Democrats were facing with Obamacare, trying to sell Obamacare, and this is something that's sort of different from that, because this is just people who are expressing their frustration. I mean, the Democrats have their own issues. I mean, if you look at the Democratic National Convention, there were protesters out there, Sanders protesters, the first few days outside the Democratic Convention and inside the convention center. So, this is what Republicans, who are also facing protesters at their town hall meetings, apparently leaders have told those Republicans, just be polite, listen, be firm, be kind, but don't run away. And that's probably good advice for the Democrats as well. Yeah,
so this video here is video protests outside Senator Chuck Schumer's either office or house. I'm not clear which. That's his house, Steve? Outside his house. Okay, so the thing about it is, what does this tell you? That you've got protesters, Steve, outside of Senator Schumer's house, and then you've got folks who are looking to Bernie Sanders here, for help, essentially. I mean, what does that tell us, and what does that indicate about his role in the party?
Well, let's remember back to 2015 and 2016 and how many millions of people came out to support Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. And these are people who, at the end of the day, were not totally sold on Hillary Clinton as the nominee. Then there was the WikiLeaks that came out about the emails within the DNC that suggested that the Democratic Party had their thumb on the scale for Hillary Clinton from the beginning. And so there's a significant number of Democrats who supported Bernie Sanders who are not happy with the direction of the party. Now, Democratic leaders right now are saying this isn't helpful to us. As we try to regain the majority in the House and the Senate, we need to be unified. It's hard to be unified when you have millions of people who are out there protesting against your own party, people who are out there protesting in front of Chuck Schumer's house. So they turn to Bernie Sanders because they know that these voters and these Democrats are not going to listen to establishment Democrats and say, hey, you need to stop protesting against Democrats. So they're turning to Bernie Sanders, say, speak to your people. people, speak to the people who support you, and please beg them to unify the party so we can go full force against the Republicans.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to watch as this dynamic plays out. All right, finally, before we go, we want to remind viewers that Steve Chaggaris is part of a new podcast, The Takeout, from our CBS News politics team, hosted by Major Garrett. And Steve, what can we find in the latest clip?
So the Takeout comes out on Fridays, but on Tuesdays now we're adding a Takeout Outtake Especial, so it's a little extra from
nice.
Yeah, so from Clinton Communications Director Jen Palmieri, who you see on your screen. She talked to us about what Democrats are thinking now, what Hillary Clinton has been thinking. She also talked to us about her favorite campaign movies. So check out that clip on iTunes, on Google Play, Stitcher, or CBSNews.com. And then this week, this Friday, we'll have the House Democratic Caucus Chairman, Joe Crowley.
Okay, a lot to talk about. Steve Chaggaris.
Ask him whether he's watched The Get Down yet.
I'm writing that question down. Thanks, Molly.
Yes, please do. Pursue that.
Molly, is it true you were Steve's intern?
I was well, I wasn't quite as, well, actually, yes, I was at C-SPAN. That's right, I really was. Yeah.
Okay, I
20
just
years
wanted
ago.
to setting the record straight here. Okay, Steve Chaggaris and Molly Hooper in Washington. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.